Ella from California who would like to talk about losing a pet. Hi, Ella. How can we help?
Hello. Can you hear me? I
Hi.
have my speakerphone off. Do I need to turn it off?
Off speaker's best, but we can hear you. I can hear you fine.
I can't hear you.
Turning your speakerphone off is best if you can. But
Okay.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll leave it as it is for now. I won't take long. I just want to say I am an atheist, but I was Christian most of my life. And then I kind of came to atheism naturally. It was a process. But I just lost something very, very dear to me. And I'm in unbearable grief. And I find myself wishing that there was a God that could help me. And I'm asking anybody who has advice on how do you handle that kind of pain, you know, the kind of grief when you're an atheist and don't have any kind of, you know, higher power or whatever. That's all. I just wondering what your thoughts are.
Yes, I mean, it's definitely difficult. I think, you know, lots of us has been there as atheists losing, you know, a loved one who's a human or an animal. You know, people, I think it's reasonable that some people love their pets as much or even more than some people. And it is very difficult. I think that for a lot of religious people, that kind of knowing that you're going to see everyone again is one of the things that kind of sells religion to them. You know, the fear of never seeing loved ones again. And obviously, as an atheist, you don't have that. I guess first I would say that what I try and do when I have lost pets before is focus on how, you know, so many animals have terrible lives in the history of life on this earth. So many animals just suffer because of humans or just because being an animal is brutal. And out of all the animals, I can't help all of them. I just, you know, if I could, I would love to because I really love animals. But I can help some animals. And for example, my cat Poppy, who I love, you know, as far as cats go, she's probably one of the luckiest cats to ever exist. And one day she's going to die, and it's going to make me very sad. But I can focus on the fact that I gave her the best life possible, and I did my best. And she knows it, and she, you know, she obviously doesn't consciously know that really what's going on because she's just a cat, but you know, I can feel that she's happy and content, and you know, she obviously loves me as much as cats can. And I really like to focus on that because I think that's when you know that you know, the time here is finite, then that's kind of all you can do. I just try and be really pragmatic and just say, you know, this is the only thing I can do, and this is what I should do. And just think also that means that I never want to just like replace a pet. Like if when Poppy dies, I'm not just being like, oh, I just get Poppy too, because she's irreplaceable.
Right.
But it's likely I would have another cat eventually once I'm over her because I love cats, and I could make another cat's life amazing. And you know, I could have another cat could be one of the top 0.1% of all cats in terms of having a happy life. And I think that's, you know, a good thing to aim for, just creating the most joy in animals that you can in your life here, and just knowing that you saw the best of them, you've still got all those amazing memories, they had a great time, and yeah, they're the kinds of thing I focus on. I was going to go into another point, but I think Mike might be able to make the point that we were thinking of.
Yeah, so this one's really tough, especially for me. Because in the case that for you, like you have, right, you've kind of taken off your old shoes, so to speak, right? And I've never worn those pair, if that makes sense. So I don't know kind of what it's like to have what might feel like a safety net in these times. The one thing I will say is that most people in these situations, because I lost the dog I had, you know, for 16 years. It was a love of my life. And so I've gone, you know, I know exactly what that's like to experience. I don't know what it's like to like long for the God in that case, but I think the way that I relate to that is it seems that people want it's going to be a smack in the face, and what you want is to soften that blow as much as possible. The reality is that you cannot soften that blow. It's like, it's going to hurt like shit. It's going to hurt really bad, and maybe for a really long time. Yeah. And that's one thing that I cannot honestly give advice on, that because people grieve differently. What worked for me may not work for you. And I don't know that I had anything that worked for me. It just kind of got to a point where it was less of a sting from the smack, right?
Time makes a big difference.
And that's the thing that nobody wants to hear, you know, in terms of that, because you're not there yet, right? You haven't had that trajectory of going through that time for to look back, and it's easy to say that. But there's one thing that I noticed when you talk about you long for a God in this case. I have some issues there where the reason why you care right now about your dog and have now lost it is because you seemingly recognized the relationship wouldn't last forever, and you seemingly recognize that you need to maintain the relationship as it's going on throughout your life. And this is similar to, like, I mean, my car isn't going to last forever. You know, it's going to end up in a landfill, right? But I need to maintain the brakes. I need to maintain things, my relationship with the car, have some knowledge about it, because I know that it's not going to last forever. But the more I maintain it, the more I spend time on it, the more I care for it. Presumably, the longer time I'll have, there'll be more times that I can point to after the fact where I said, yes, I maintained the car, or I maintained the relationship with my cat or my dog, right? If it was the case that we had some God, right, and you just we're going to see everyone that you're going to see, it's going to be extremely vacuous, because when you step outside your house and you leave, right, you know that feeling you get, like, oh, I don't want to leave my dog. It's, you know, I'll be right back, but I don't want it to, you know, have anxiety or whatever. You wouldn't say, like, I love you to it. You wouldn't pet it before you say bye. You wouldn't worry about those concerns if it could just always last forever. So, like, what actually gives it meaning and value is knowing that it doesn't last forever, knowing that you have one time to build the best relationship you can and maintain that relationship. And that's going to work with any type of finite thing we have, whether it's some guitar that you like, or a pair of shoes, or whatever it might be. You maintain that. That's the only thing you can do, right? It's the only thing you can do, that you can point to when it's all said and done, that I did everything I could fucking do to give as much love and care as I possibly could for that thing. And I'm willing to bet that I mean, I don't know you, but would it be a safe assumption for me to say that, do you feel confident that you did that?
Oh, yes.
And so that's the only thing that I can, like, point to that you can hold on to in these times, because getting slapped with something like that, there's nothing that absolves the sting, right? There's nothing that will absolve that sting. You have to go through with that knowledge, and now with the prior knowledge that maybe I can maintain some relationships better. Maybe I can focus on X better, right? And so try as much as you can to turn that into some positive thing. And I know a lot of the things I said there are pretty cliche, but there's a reason I think that they're said in those cases. But I don't know why. I guess the one thing I wouldn't understand is longing for something where it has this notion that you're just going to have those things always, because then it seems to strip away the meaning of the things you cared for.
Yeah, like, things are special because you don't have them all the time. You know, that's why things are rare, and that's why people seek out rare things, and it's why they seek out rare experiences, because stuff you can just do all the time forever without any stress at all just become mundane. And, you know, it's very hard to imagine the love for your dog becoming mundane, but that's because we live in a world where dogs do die, and, you know, they're special in your lives. But if you were gonna, if you knew all humans live forever, if you were, like, forged in the fires of Mount Doom or whatever, and you were going to live forever, and you encountered dogs and they all lived forever, you might just be like, oh, whatever, it's just a dog, isn't it? It's just like, oh, whatever, it's just tap water. People take tap water for granted until you live somewhere that they don't have it. Yeah, I guess one other thing I have to say, maybe more in the, like, particularly atheist theme, and I don't know, I don't really want to kind of be brutal about this, but like, we could long for a God, and maybe we could say the Christian God, or you know, some other God. Quite a few of the gods, as they're described in various different religions, do not give a fucking shit about dogs. Like, the Christian in Christianity, most of the Christians I've ever talked to would agree that animals don't have souls and don't go to heaven, and you'll never see them again. So if you loved your dog, God has created a situation where this dog lives and dies, and many dogs live, die, and suffer in horrific ways. They don't get to go and spend time with God in heaven or anything, and you would go and live in heaven or hell, and be apart from your dog forever. Like, I mean, when you eventually die, I mean, this is really kind of crude and numerical way of looking at it, but you know, you're going to be apart from your dog for 50 years or whatever. But if you're going to heaven, you're always going to have the knowledge of this dog that this God has separated you from indefinitely, and it didn't need to. It's so pointless. Like, why do only humans go to heaven? And then that's a very Christian-centric one. But there are other, you know, religions which will say that animals are just there for humans to eat and farm and what have you, and they don't have any special value. And I think that it may not be true of all religions, and some religions might say that goes on forever. But then what you're doing here, just kind of shopping for religion by the one that's nicest to your dog, and it might be horrible in all kinds of other ways. I mean, religions always have like loads of nonsense tacked on the edge. It's obviously not a very good reason to believe, but also I mean, yeah, loads of gods are just garbage, so it could be even worse.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't say thanking the, you know, the guy that throws the grenades so that there's a hero that jumps on top of it to save the family. Well, the when we look at what's actualized in the world by the deity that you would be longing for in this case, presumably it's a deity that's infallible and it could actualize any world, right? And it decides to actualize a world where it's going to have that type of pain and suffering. And so now we would be wanting to thank the guy that throws the grenade, that creates the scenario for the hero to be jumped on top. But that's the way that I see that, is why would we long for the thing that creates the scenario, right? Why, you know what I mean? Like, why would we? Because that thing would have been able to actualize a world where you could have a long length with the dog, and then it could also make it not mundane. It could just give us the ability to always perceive the type of love that we always had for it, right? It's infallible. It could do that thing. Yet it decided
it could even make it so that we don't feel sad when the thing goes.
Yeah, and so
that was an active choice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just seems like we would be crying out for the thing that creates that type of scenario, but that's like, to me, thanking the guy that throws the grenade, right?
Yeah. And I realize that doesn't really help with grief, but I think it is one of the things that you can remind yourself of when you're like really reaching out for, oh, I wish I just believe in God. Maybe I could just like put aside my doubts and just do it anyway because it make me feel better. It is worth just considering. I mean, another thing that I often say to people, religious people and atheists who are talking about this kind of thing is, often you'll hear religious people being like, well, you just can't deal with this grief without God. And I say, well, you can. Like, plenty of atheists have lost loved ones and pets, and they feel horrible, and then they manage to live the rest of their lives. And, you know, it's horrid, and it doesn't ever really totally go away, but it is absolutely something you can do as an atheist. You don't need God. You don't need this like safety net that probably doesn't exist and we don't have evidence for, and that might not catch dogs anyway. Because you can do this on your own, and well, with your friends and your family and maybe other pets, like you can get through it.
Yeah. Well, I certainly can't manufacture a belief in God anymore. That's long gone. So that's okay. It's just the pain that makes me have a fantasy.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to grieve. Like, you've got to recognize you can't punish it. No, it's okay. You can't. Don't punish yourself for wishing that there was a heaven. Don't punish yourself for wishing you could see your dog again. Don't punish yourself for crying or feeling sad or anything. It's normal, and it's okay to lean into it. Like, in the short term, just feel those things. Just let yourself wish that you could see your dog again. That's okay. if it gets to the point where it's dragging out for years and years or something, then it's, you know, something you want to work on and deal with. But when it's in the short term, I think it's okay for you to come up with these scenarios, because it's like an expression of your grief and an expression of your love. I think that's okay. So just don't punish yourself.
Okay. I appreciate you guys taking me serious.
Of course.
I really appreciate that. Thank
you.
Of
course. Well, and before you go, Ella, I don't know if you're familiar with Recovering from Religion, but it's a great organization that can hopefully make even more of a positive benefit than, you know, this kind of brief conversation we've had. They'll be able to provide better resources, and more tangible resources and things that were in the future. You know, it's not just a kind of a reflection upon this call or having to watch the call over, you know, when you're in a down mood. If this helped you in some way, it's going to be an active way of trying to help you through this. So I would look into that resource.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talk to people.
I'll try that. So I just like Google it, or
just throw in your Google
the link
machine.
Is just below. If you can go, you can watch back the YouTube video. It'll probably be in the description or in the comments. Just recoveringfromreligion.org.
Yeah, or you know, at any point, throw it in your Google machine, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for calling, Ella. I hope that it was able to help.
Well, I hope we could help in some way. It's definitely a tough kind of. It's hard to navigate these conversations.
Definitely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Good luck with it, Ella.
And serious, and that was the most important. So thank you.
Of
Definitely.
course.
And you're welcome to call back. You can call back another week and let us know how it's going. And
okay.
Yeah, we'll be happy to take your call again.
Yeah, trust me. I absolutely 100% resonate with what you're saying. I had a dog for 16 years, and it is not an easy thing to go through. When we put my dog down, we didn't, me and my brother didn't even want my friend who was giving us support to be in the room, because it's like, no one should have to go through this, more than one time. And considering he has a dog was perfectly well, at the time, it's like, no one should have to go through that more than once. But it is one of those things that you probably will. And on Katie's point, that act of making a difference in 1 versus 5 lives, I mean, that might be something worth at the end of it all to think about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for calling, Anna.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Of course.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite a heavy topic to talk about, death and grief and stuff. Sorry to start the show with it, everyone, but I think it's a good call to have, and it's an important topic to discuss just in general, because it is one of the things that does drive people to religion. And Ella didn't sound like she was going to do that, but some people do. And absolutely, some people's lives turn around when they lose a loved one or a pet even, and they go into religion, and it can change quite a lot about their life. And have had before where someone has gone to religion and they've been there for like a decade or something, and they've used it as their like prop to hold them hold them up and keep them going. And then when they realize that it's rubbish and they become an atheist, then suddenly all the grief comes back because they didn't ever properly deal with it.
Which it becomes even probably a bigger problem, I would assume.
Because then you don't have the tools to deal with it.